Hi, this is Carrie Hummingbird with Soul Nectar show that talks about the indescribable, that connection to essence, that which is bigger than us. And we do it through storytelling because that is the way that I've realized is helpful, sharing experiences that lead us into that higher knowing, that knowing of ourselves in a new way, in a deeper way, in the truth of us, actually. And today I'm really excited to invite Greg Walsh on the show. Welcome, Greg.
Oh, how are you? Thank you.
Good.
It's great.
And Greg is also known as GP, so I'll probably flip in between GP and Greg Walsh.
Yeah.
But
You knew me a while ago, still call me Craig, but most people know me as GP.
GP. So he is a host on the Law of Attraction Radio Network and was just inducted into the Transformational Leadership Council. He's a speaker, author, spiritual teacher, energy healer, workshop leader, and a master coach. And he's been coaching and healing for over 30 years and touched thousands of people with his irreverent humor. And I can confirm that he has irreverent humor. You will find out for yourself shortly. Bold assertions and contradictions of conventional wisdom. So he is the irreverent sage, and he's got a rare honesty, biting wit, and timing of a comedian. So the insights, they make your head spin. That's about what's going to happen on this broadcast. It just, fair warning, fair gleefulness to all of my audience who loves this kind of topic. It's going to go some places today, so I'm excited. Our conversation today was just so much fun, Greg, when it's getting to know you, and
yeah, it really was. It was great.
Food for thought.
Yes, and food for the heart.
Yeah, food for the heart. So I think one thing we didn't actually talk about the other day, which is a good place to start for this program, is tell us a little bit about how you touched the essence within yourself that you started, even were inspired to go down this path. What was a key event or awareness?
I'd like to say that it was, I just awakening, and I was called to this path, which is all absolute nonsense. I was a drugged out rock and roll drummer, and my childhood was abysmal. I was a juvenile delinquent. My mother was mentally ill. My father was just not there, and so it was just like perpetual suffering. And I found solace in. Thank goodness I had a talent for music, and I loved doing music. I'm sure I would have been dead or in jail had I not, been spending time playing music rather than walking the streets, which is I did for a long time. Anyway, I was just drugged out, couldn't stop. I had no personality left. I was bitter. I was angry. I was everything was horrible. And no interest in whatsoever in anything spiritual. I was just, I didn't care. So I was, not from the world's point of view, I was not the likely candidate, but I guess I'm kind of the kind that divine takes a shining to, because it just kind of got rescued in the most miraculous way. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. I mean, I was playing in bar bands. I was 19 years old. It's 1971. I'm playing in a bar band in Wisconsin. I basically spent every penny I had to get there. Everything I owned was the drum set and the clothes. I was sleeping on a floor in the living room, with the other guys. They got there first, so they got 2 rooms, and I slept in the living room, right, on the floor. And I mean, that was my life. I would just, it was either playing and then doing drugs, or I was just doing drugs. We weren't playing, and on one particular night, it was, I got particularly wasted on a bunch of hash. I was sitting around with a bunch of other people doing the same thing. And I was just suddenly just gripped with this terror that I just never known. My entire body froze up. I was paralyzed. I could barely breathe. My heart was pounding. My head felt like it was going to explode. I literally couldn't move. I sat there like this, and the only thing I could move was my eyes. I had absolutely no control over it. I couldn't feel it. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I'd messed myself. I had no idea what was happening, and I was in total panic. I just said, oh my God, I'm dying. But the thing is, it was like, good. It's like, great, finally. I mean, it was like this total relief. And without any input or warning or any kind of volition on my part, I literally witnessed my body get up, walk out the door, and start walking. I had no control over it. It was turning, it was going places. I was completely out of control. I was completely on autopilot. I was just along for the ride. And I walked for about, it was like 30, 45 minutes. Came to this bridge. It's not a high bridge, just a low bridge over a small river. Stopped, turned right. And there I was standing there on the edge of this bridge looking down into the most ugly, horrific, dead, polluted river I'd ever seen. It was smelly. It was dead. I mean, it's like there was like a few things, could live in there, but nothing worth knowing. And as I sat there staring at that, it's just like a volcano went off inside of me. I was just so angry. I was just so pissed off that we just destroyed it. That particular river was one of the cleanest in the country at one time. It was the most beautiful. It was named for how clear the water was. And it was just a cesspool. And as I'm sitting there just ranting on and on about how horrible everything, humanity is, it was like, but me, I'm the worst. I did the same thing to me. I just destroyed myself. I took something that was good and I ruined it. I just destroyed it. I don't deserve to live. I don't deserve anything. And all of a sudden there was this really loud voice. Excuse me, I cannot tell the story without getting choked up. And this really loud voice said, "Look closer." And it was so loud, it stopped me in my tracks. And it had so much authority, I said, I started to look. I go, look at what? It said, look closer. Look really close. So I just put all of my energy staring down into this ugly cesspool of a river. And all of a sudden, I started to shrink. I got smaller and smaller and smaller, and everything around me just got bigger and bigger and bigger until finally I was suspended in space, and all around me, floating in space, were molecules. And the voice said to me, it said, look at the water. I was looking, it was clear, the H2O molecules, it was really clear. He says, now look at the pollution. I looked at the pollution, he said, they're not touching, are they? I said, no, they're not. He says, they haven't bonded at all, have they? I said, no. Sorry. It said, and if you could find a way to remove all of that, you'd have the same pristine, original water that you always have, wouldn't you? I said, I was just stunned. My God, you're right. It would be the same water. And then it said, Greg, that's you. Just this explosion just took place. It's just like this light began to pour into the top of my head, and I was just completely transported. And the next thing I know, I'm standing on the bridge again. My body's back. My heart slowed down. Terror is completely gone. My head is back to normal. I'm clear, and I'm just like in a place that I just never experienced before. And I felt something that I simply could not remember ever feeling. I felt loved. Mm. Within 6 months, everything in my life had changed. My friend, everything had fallen away, including smoking. And I was getting A's. I was back in college. I was getting A's. I started writing music. People were thinking, Jesus, where did this kid come? All of a sudden, it was just like an entirely different person emerged. I since have called that then the original innocence. And But there was two parts of it, right? There was the pure water, the original innocence. But he said, if you could find a way to separate the two, and that's really become the mission for the rest of my life, was to find the way to do that. And that's what I finally have embodied in what I call inner reconciliation. So that is how I ended up where I'm ending up. And that's why it was so long ago. And I mean, I was 19. That was 46 years ago. I'm 65 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. What a precious gift of connection with the divine.
Pure grace.
A pure grace.
Pure grace.
And I've only ever had that voice in my head one time. I was gifted with that as well. And it was
man's case. I mean, it had, it had to kind of grab me multiple times.
Me too.
And it wasn't done then. I mean, there was plenty left to do.
There's plenty left to do, but it's like that sort of by the shirt collars, hey, you're getting way off track here. Here's a lesson.
Yeah, you're not quite as resistant. Yeah, a whole other set of things you need to learn how to do. And little by little I did. I went through them all. I really kind of dismantled the whole thing, so I understood where all that came from and how it could be there and the original innocence at the same time. And it was really just kind of a glorious and an enormously demanding path. But I couldn't get off it. I mean, it was just, it is my life, still is.
What a really profound message too about the water itself is pure and has never been not pure.
Right.
It's just all the stuff that's on it that makes it look not pure.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's the same with us. I mean, we're ironically enough, completely, we're made of water and
yes. It's absolutely pure.
And it's pure, but we don't think we're pure.
No.
We think we're tainted and ruined and broken and we have to find our way back and heal ourselves, to get back to the state of grace, and that it's impossible to do while you're in the human body. And
I can verify that it isn't. I can personally attest that it is not impossible. And in fact, it's your destiny.
Mm. So tell us more. I know that you and I we've had some very interesting conversations about, what is the stuff? What is the stuff that makes us feel or think or perceive that the water is not pure, that, that we are somehow not pure? What's the stuff? What is that?
The stuff is a natural and inevitable outcome of being human. It is natural there's a natural energy within the entire energy system. The nervous system is really just a manifestation of a more subtle energy system that lies underneath it, but it's a very key part of it. And in the beginning, you're a child. You're completely helpless. You're completely vulnerable. You cannot protect yourself. There's nothing you can do about it. You are completely dependent upon your parents. You're dependent upon your parents, and you're dependent upon the natural resiliency and adaptive power of the nervous system. Now, as a child, your innocence is obvious. Nothing you do is pretentious. Everything is 100% you, 100% natural. And of course, a lot of things children do are dangerous, and we have to stop them. But a lot of things that they're doing aren't dangerous at all. It's just them expressing themselves. But what they're expressing meets with displeasure or dismissal of the tribe of origin. The end result is a message is sent very, very clear. There's something wrong with you. You shouldn't be like that. So here you are in a dilemma. It's an existential dilemma. I'm being what I am, but what I am is earning me pain from my environment and is a threat to my very survival. I cannot question the authority of the environment. obviously something's wrong with me. And that behavior then gets grabbed, shoved off somewhere, kept out of sight. It's not allowed to get out. And then layers of defense, personality, all sorts of things get laid on top to keep it hidden. Because for it to come out really is dangerous. That process happens over and over again, thousands of times a day, and eventually solidifies into a particular set of behaviors that work in that environment. And then as we grow, it solidifies into a sense of identity that gets created based on what is being presented, not on who you are. That identity, dogma and substance of that. That is the idea of who we think we are. And that is the cause of all the suffering. And in fact, it's the one who is suffering. Without that, which is impossible, by the way, you cannot get from childhood to adulthood. If you don't have that happen, you die. It's that simple. It is not that anybody did anything wrong. It's not as though there's been some sin. Adam and Eve haven't fallen. This is the way it works. And once you understand that, you realize, oh, it is the mechanism. But here's the beautiful part of it. The whole mechanism did that to protect that original innocence. It literally created a decoy out of absolutely nothing to draw all of the attention away. So everything went against that. And in fact, the real you remains hidden and safe, waiting for the opportunity for the walls to begin to come down and you can come out and play again.
Oh my gosh, I love the way you just reframed that.
It's the most remarkably beneficial system in the world, which is why the very first class I recommend to people is You're Not Broken. And I explain why. This is the way it works. It is the most brilliant strategy there is. And it's actually mythologized. The taking of Christ, the story of Christ being born and wanting to be killed by Herod, and his parents take him out of Israel and into Egypt. They hide him away from the threat until he's old enough to stand on his own 2 feet. That's the metaphor that this is referring to. The energy, the perfect parents, the perfect Mary and Joseph, who basically have hid the real you, the divine child, so that it is not harmed by the environment until it's strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet.
So, here I'm getting emotional.
Yeah, you can't help it, can't you? I can't.
Because in this paradigm, it's like, don't you just have to thank your shadow self? Don't you have to thank your ego, that construction? I mean, it's like, thank you for protecting me.
My ass. Thank you. Yes. And that, I mean, that's what I do. That's what inner reconciliation is. This is not the enemy. And
they think it's wrong, though. Like, I know my ego aspects, all my voices and the various people I think I've been, or, thinks that I've been bad, or, it's like, thought it was me. And, and then at some point I woke up and I realized, oh, that's not me. And as a matter of fact, I can change who I think I am. And I did that. I went through that process. I re-scripted my life. Like, I rewrote the whole story in about 6 years.
Yeah.
And
well, you can, as long as the nervous system approves it, that it still meets all the standards of safety, right? I mean, it's fine.
Well, yeah. And now I'm Carrie Hummingbird, right? So I have the identity that's like the shiny bird that gets all the attention out there, but there's still me underneath,
Well, yeah, the real you doesn't have a name, right? The real you is that pure innocence that is nameless. It's just itself and nothing more. I mean, it is the most perfect ruse that's ever been created. They often do that. It's really interesting. The Secret Service will do that with the president. There's to be the big motorcade and them running next to it and everything down the street. In fact, the president's in the back of a truck that's being whisked around in a completely different way to be taken in the back door through the kitchen of the hotel where he's going to give a talk. He's not even in the motorcade. It's a complete ruse.
This is making me think about a couple of teachings I've received along the way. One of them was from the Four Agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz, because that's one of my lineages. I've studied with one of his students. Mm-hmm. And the parasite would be, you know, what they call it. They call the parasite, like that aspect of you. But, you know, this is reframing it. It's like, it's not a parasite. It's actually a defense mechanism. It's a shield.
That's all it is.
And at some point it does, you know, at some point it gets a little too tight and small. And, you know, when the butterfly is ready to emerge from the cocoon, you know, we've got to kind of rip it a little and tear it and pull it apart, you know, and go, okay, let me out. I'm ready, you know, and in that way, maybe it could be perceived as a parasite, but I like this view because I've been feeling more and more that every action that I've ever taken in my life, whoever I am, has always been doing my best. My dad used to say, you do the best you can with the tools you have at the time. Yes. And I have always done that. I've always thought I was doing my best, even when I was acting in a way that you would go, that's your best.
Well, that was the functioning at the time, and now you look back at it and go, that wasn't my best. But of course, that's all it was. That's not true. That is the best. That's it. Look, the universe didn't fuck up.
True that.
I mean, it didn't, right? If I've got a disagreement with reality, I think I should take a look at me. It's reality, truth, right? It kind of holds all the cards. It's like, oh, okay. So it's my job to reconcile with the functioning with reality, not to try to make it reconcile with me. Okay, what am I missing here? The universe is innately benevolent, caring, loving, and I'm feeling like it's not. Okay, I'm assuming that it's correct, and I start from there. And if that's correct, then what's off? My perspective is off. So I look more closely at my perspective. What am I? And then I begin to see all the ways in which I've identified the muck as myself. And of course, the moment I do that, there's going to be, the moment I identify with that which feels separate and limited and lacking, I'm going to feel limited, separate, and lacking, even though I'm not. Mm. I'm going to take that on. It's going to feel like it because I believe it to be myself, even though it's not true. If I can begin to question that and say, is that really true? Am I really that one that I think I am? And it's really easy to see that you're not because you're the one looking at it. If you take one step back, you can see every bit of that behavior is something that is happening simply within your consciousness. And you're looking at it. Well, okay, if I'm looking at it, then it's not me. So what's looking at it? Now we had a 180-degree turn, and you find that what's looking at it is the universe. The very thing that you thought was out there is the thing that's been looking through it the entire time. And suddenly the out there and the in there just dissolve. They're not two. Which is the way the Hindus put oneness. They don't say it's one, they say it's not two. Which is the most, it takes you into that place of pure mystery. Because even one we want to wrap a name around. I'm digressing though. So many great subjects. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, that's okay. So I was a rabbit trail, but you know what's interesting about that is that I've had a couple of transcendental experiences where I realized that was true. Like one time I was driving in a car, not the best place to have a transcendental experience, but I was driving in my car. And all of a sudden, I don't know, my crown chakra must have been really open. All of a sudden I realized I could be the person driving next to me. And then I was for a second, like a split second. I saw their arms instead of mine for just a split second. And then I was somebody halfway around the world, like in India, like for like just a split second. And I'm driving the car, having this experience, obviously with one sort of part of my awareness where I am, but also with this other thing happening that was very interesting to experience. And And I guess in that moment, I realized that I'm not defined by this body. I mean, I am animating it somehow. I'm present with it, but I could just as easily slide over and be someone else. I mean, I
Slide over, you're already there. I mean,
already there.
you're not in the body. Jesus put it beautifully. He said, the wind blows where the tree bends, but you can't tell where it's coming from or where it's going. And such are all, like that are all that are born of the Spirit. That which is, if we were ignorant and looked at the tree, we think that, and we even say the tree is dancing, right? And we might even look at the tree to find the muscles that are contracting that make it move, not realizing what's moving it is not in the tree. Now, we look at the human body, this sophisticated machine, and we think we're inside it moving it. It's not. The Spirit is moving it from the outside. It's never been in it. You've never been in the body. You're not in it now. The body.
So what's this whole thing about embodying? Because I feel better when I'm grounded. So what's that about?
Well, don't mistake that for being flightier out there. It simply means that you are the very ground in which the sense of you wants to ground itself. Where else are you going to ground except that which is completely changeless and omnipresent? That's the ground.
Mm.
And so as your sense of self returns to that as the actual origin, that there's something that is infinite in scale that is illuminating and animating and moving this body, you say, oh, I'm not in the body. This body will come and go. You know you're not in the body. You've watched it change your whole life. You don't look the way you did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 30. You don't have the same interests. Everything within you has been changing constantly. As a matter of fact, in the course of our conversation, you've had about 50 million cells die, and about 50 million more get reborn. This thing is constantly changing, and you're the one witnessing it. You're not changing.
But I think that a lot of us don't like change. We don't. Well, our ego doesn't like change. That's really. I had to realize that's the aspect of me that didn't like the change. And what was I doing? At some point, I realized I was like trying to hold myself in place by telling the same story about myself over and over and over again. And that was creating me. Right. And as long as I kept telling that story, then I would stay, because there was something that really wanted to wash me away. And I could feel it. It wanted to just go, nope, that's not,
yep.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, that's trying to live in the Kodak moment, right? I mean, Buddha said that the cause of suffering was attempting to make the impermanent permanent.
Ah, yes.
It's
I wish I'd read that back in 2000 and something.
That's permanent is you. And that's verifiable. That's not a mystical idea you have to, it's verifiable. Look at your life. We all have that sensation that even if when I was 5, 10, 15, and whatever you are now, there is something that has not changed. There is something that has seen every change coming, watched it while I was there, and watched it leave. Every event at every time, there's been something absolutely changeless that has been there watching it.
That's the deep presence. I feel it as a deepness.
Yes, you feel, but that's also an experience of it. You're it. That's the final little jump that people find so hard to do, because they think, well, yeah, God, that's the God, the I am and all of that, and as if it's there. No, that's where you're looking from. That's who's looking. The I isn't somebody trying to get to God. The I is God.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is. It is the only I am. What else is there going to be?
Well, and since our last talk, because we were talking about the bear in the woods that found me, and the last time, and how substantial the bear was to me, because the bear, backing up, there was a campfire, and it was a piece of land that had no development on it, and my sweetie and I were on it alone, camping for the night, and it was dark as heck, and we had a fire, and then a bear walked about 10 feet around us, and we were like, and I can't see, right? So I'm just using my extrasensory skills that I use for my healings. I'm using those skills, and I can feel and perceive it through these skills. And what I perceive is this huge bubble of like the ocean, almost like the ocean passed through my little lake. Like, and and we were talking about this. It felt substantial. I love that word that you used last time. It was substantial. And in comparison with the me I was being, which was my small self at the time, it showed me how substantial that was compared to what I was being, which was my personality. So when I look now, you gave me the challenge to kind of feel like, can you even feel the realness of your personality even through any time in your life? Can you access it? And I can't, actually.
No, you can't. It's because it's just a thought. There's nothing substantial there. I mean, the bear represents substance. It's like, standing on a mountain, or, or by the ocean or something like that. You feel real substance. Well, all that means is that you're experiencing yourself on a deeper level. You've stepped outside of the smallness and felt life as it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're so big that you can take in the bear, the mountain, and the ocean and still have room left. You're bigger than all of that. I mean, the bear it lives within you.
Mm.
That we would understand the nature of consciousness, because we think of consciousness as like compressed within the skull here. You explore it with some people and they end up, oh, it's this little thing. It's about maybe an inch big, right? It's like, because we're trying to localize it, and we localize it first to the body, but really try to find a boundary to consciousness. You can't do it, because every time you walk up to what appears to be a limit, you realize that you're seeing the limit. Well, what's beyond the limit, right? When then another limit pops up and you realize, wait a minute, every one of these is popping up within consciousness. I can't find an end to the consciousness itself, because there isn't one.
Okay, now I'm thinking about, when you do meditations, and I've had these meditations where, you get guided to go down and ground with the earth and go to the center of the earth, and you can miraculously find the center of the earth every time.
Every time.
You know where it is. I've never been there physically. I know where the center of the earth is. And then when you get guided to go up, like, so I've had someone that went to the center of the galaxy. I knew where that was too. Mm-hmm. The center of the galaxy. How do I know that? How can I feel and perceive that? How do I, I know exactly where it is.
Because when you say that, how do I know that? You're referring to the eye that feels as if it's limited to the body. But when you actually go there, you realize you're not. It feels so much at home. It's just, the problem is the experience you're having is contradicting the beliefs you have. The experience is real. I'm not contained in this body. I easily access any part of the galaxy I want. But then that sense of I is there, goes, well, how's that possible? Right? So now the actual experience itself finds itself in conflict with our belief about it. This is the essence of the spiritual journey, of spiritual sadhana, to come to trust our instinct, our sense of the direct experience of truth over our beliefs about it. Even though all of those beliefs are universally held and people act like it, and we build societies and cultures and all sorts of things based as if they're true, when you put them to the test, you find your direct experiences, no, they're not. And that's where the real sage begins to emerge. That's where real power begins to emerge. It's like, no, that's really not true. Real courage begins to pop up as you challenge the fundamental beliefs of the entire culture. But of course, the fundamental beliefs of the entire culture are killing us and the earth. They need to be challenged.
They need to be challenged. I challenged them a lot on my journey, because this is the path, right? As soon as you start in the path, you start getting these experiences to help you challenge and step out of your fear, because fear is what keeps you in the culture. I don't know, the matrix. I call it the fear matrix. It's like you're in that fear matrix, that belief system that everyone agrees to.
Yes.
Like you can't, trust and have trust and faith with your money. You need a job. Like, don't lose your job. Like, that was the first one, right? Yes. So many people face that one because it's a big one. It's like the source of your money is your security. It triggers your reptilian brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a feeling that exists not just as a belief in your head, as a belief system. It actually is part of the energy programming in the system. So your body believes it. Your body has been living as if that was true for a long time, which is why the weight of belief, if it wasn't for that, we'd simply discard it. No, what I'm seeing here is true. But that the feeling, a lot of times, the first time people have a deep experience like that, when they come back, the first thing that happens is all sorts of emotions begin to erupt, like fear and anger, and they find themselves yelling at their kids or flipping somebody off. What happened? I was just talking to God, right? It's like, because that belief is not just in your head, it is wired into the system. And if when that's understood, you realize that once that kind of awakening takes place, a different kind of what I call a post-awakening sadhana or practice begins. So that the awakening now can basically colonize the whole rest of the energy, expunge those old beliefs and patterns, and begin to actually take over the energy system so that it becomes ruled by the divine. And when that happens, that's what's called the sage.
And I think that's a process. I've been going through, it's like layers of that, because you can't do it all at once. You would, crack, literally.
And nobody ever has. Okay. Anybody who thinks that I'm going to have the great awakening, the great enlightenment, and angels are singing, and that's it, everything's gone from that point on. Sorry, wrong, but thanks for playing.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, because it wouldn't be healthy for you, actually. It would be really bad.
There's no such thing as a sage who hasn't gone through exactly that. The thing that happens is that eventually you become more confident in your vision, become more confident in the truth you're seeing than even the reactions in your own body. You trust the vision more than even the responses that are going on. The senses, the evidence of the senses becomes absolutely meaningless to you, because you realize it's just an echo of the past. It's just a manifestation from the way I used to think.
Now that's interesting. So you're saying this is new information.
Good.
So here's what I realized was the mind was a dangerous place to be. Okay, so I realized that, and I said, all right, well, you're telling me I'm crazy. You've been telling me for 30 years. Put me, I had to go to psychotherapy appointments and all this. You kind of put me on drugs. So obviously the mind is a dangerous place to be, and going to the psychotherapy sessions wasn't good either. So I decided, I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm just done talking about it. And now I'm going to try something new. And so I did shamanism. That's how I got into that, because it's experiential. It's not about talking about it, making a story. It's like, what do you feel on the inside? What are you experiencing? What are your senses telling you? And now what do you feel? What do you know? And cultivating your own intuition, cultivating your own awareness internally of an experience you're having of this life. And that to me is shamanism. And it's taking me some very fascinating places. It's been a fabulous journey. And so what now you're telling me, though, is I can't trust I need to kind of be aware that my senses might be faulty because I'm in this body. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that anything that contradicts the truth of who you are can't be true, right? Truth doesn't contradict itself, right? So, and it isn't really about the experiences. What I try to do is always bring people's attention back, not to the experience, but to the one having the experience, to the sense of I that's actually in the midst of the experience. Because the experience will be interpreted based on who you think you are. Those are the eyes through which you're going to see it. If you see yourself as the infinite divine, the experience will be the experience of the infinite divine. If you see yourself as a limited person, it will be the experience of a limited person with the hope of expanding, or whatever gets attached, whatever the particular point of view of that limited person is. That's the nature of perception. It's the nature of experience. So I always want to bring people back. Who's having the experience? Through whose eyes are you looking? And then you can actually begin to look from the point of view of who's looking, and begin to take apart the I itself, which is the real journey. ultimately, the only thing we suffer from is thinking that an image we have of ourselves in our mind is actually who we are. The pollution that I saw turned out not to be something that was polluting me, but was actually something very innocent and natural, but limited. It was just a functioning of life that I mistook myself to be. And my sense of I getting invested in it is the only power it had. The moment I believed in it, it became a living thing, because that's what consciousness does. It breathed into the nostrils the breath of life, and it became a living thing. That's the nature of consciousness. Wherever it puts its attention, it becomes creation. Now, if consciousness believes itself to be limited, whatever it puts its attention, it will be limited. It will see limited. It will look like it will create a limited universe. It's so free, it can create bondage. But that's not the truth. And eventually you see that what I'm looking at, that I was so identified with, can't be me because I'm looking at it. It's so simple and obvious. It can't be me. I'm looking at it. I didn't step out of me to look over here and look at me. I can't do that. Nobody can do that. You can't step out of the consciousness. So whatever appears to you is only an appearance in consciousness, any more than the image on the screen on Netflix is the screen. Nor does it affect the screen. You're raging fire and the screen's not even warm. No.
So people don't like this because it means that, you know, the elections that happen in the United States are part of all of our consciousness. Like, it's people don't want that because they say, no, I didn't vote for him. But
you know what? Call me the irreverent sage. Yes, it's not always the most popular stuff, but it's truthful. I avoid political conversations, right? Because they go nowhere.
they don't.
The reality is, perfect. He does represent what our culture has become. I think he's a perfect image of what it is. If you look at popular culture and business, the way things are done and the drive for greed and stuff, he's like the poster boy, for crying out loud. You know, a reality TV show star becomes president of the United States. I actually think it's quite poetic justice.
It is. Well, it really demonstrates. I mean, I always tell my clients, like, it's like whatever you're seeing happen in your life is a reflection of you. Like, it's a reflection of your inner self. Otherwise, it wouldn't be presenting itself to you. You know, so that's a hard one for people to get sometimes, because they say, well, I'm not this or I'm not that. And that's hard for us to admit here too. You know, I'm not that. I'm not.
You're not. You know, I mean, in the sense that, you know, because now people start going on a witch hunt and they want to find all these things. It's not like that. You know, I mean, we are operating as one, right? So you know, Jesus said that he took on the sins of the world. That was what was said about him. If we look at that in the deepest significance, this is exactly what he was doing. He didn't see the world as being something separate from himself. And therefore, whatever was going on in the world was his. It was his to do with what he needed to do. But whenever the world ran into him, beauty and love emerged. He was not a point at which the world would get amplified in the same direction. In fact, it would go there to die. It would leave and something else would happen. There's a beautiful example of that when he was walking through one particular town, and he's being mobbed. I mean, it's just like being pushed. The disciples are around him trying to protect him, right? And some woman who had an issue of blood, which basically she was menstruating for 12 years. And she said, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be well. And it's such a beautiful story because she touches them, and Jesus stops and says, wait a minute, somebody touched me. And the disciples go, Lord, there's like 1,000 people around you pushing on you. He says, no. Somebody touched me. I felt virtue go out of me. And if you look at from the point of view of Judaic law, this woman being menstruating basically constantly for 12 years, she was unclean. She had no role within society. She was basically useless. She had no virtue, no value. She was like permanently in the red tent. Jesus felt that. That was the touch that he felt, not the hand on the garment. He said, I felt. And he looked around, he said, you. He said, yes, it was me. Just go your way. You've been made whole. That outgoing of power, it wasn't that he was just all this powerful. He felt that. Felt that pain. He felt that. The difference between him and the rest of us, and actually most people who are empathic, is he didn't identify with it. For him, it was just one of those things, not me, not anybody. Boom, away it goes. Not just not me, not anybody. And nothing can stand in that depth of love. And that's the meaning behind the bodhisattva vow in Buddhism. I vow that suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. I won't enter into nirvana until all sentient beings go with me. And it's not that I'm going to sit around and try to save people. It means they're all me. Any part of me that is yet to be fully redeemed into Buddhahood is reflected in the world around me. This is me. I love my neighbor as myself. So it's all me. I take it. Every joy is mine. Every sorrow is mine. It's all. I take it all. But when you know who you are, it's like it's no big deal. Of course you do. Dismissing a world's phobia is no harder than dismissing my own. It's the same. The problem is that you're God who thinks they're a person. only consciousness can be conscious of consciousness. What else can be? Can something not conscious be conscious of consciousness? Only awareness can be aware of itself. Only God can know itself. The consciousness, the only being, the only I am there is the only thing that can possibly know anything. And there's one I am. I am that I am. Not this other one, this one. I am that I am. That is who's looking out behind those eyes. Pure. That's who's hearing my words. The body's not hearing my words. Your body's not hearing my words any more than this microphone is. The brain isn't hearing it. You are.
Yeah, it's actually been a little disturbing since we talked the last time, because I've been aware, like I've been trying to feel the substance of, like, say, even my son, like, as separate from me. Like, yeah, I used to be able to, but I can't, because it's all the same.
This is the beauty. All you have to do is look for yourself, and this boundary between the two that you believe so strongly, you can't find it.
I can't. It doesn't exist. Now but the physical thing is cool because you can actually touch the person and feel like you're, that's something separate. But it's all the same. Ever since we had that conversation, I was like, it's so.
Wait a second. Let's actually look at that. Let's see if that's true. Right?
Oh no. Level deeper. Okay.
You touch something. Where is the experience of touch happening? Out there?
It's like it's input from my senses, right? It's input.
But where are the senses appearing? What gives the senses sentience? Is your hand conscious? Is it looking at you?
No, it's a receptor, so it's sending a signal.
Are you sure? Is it telling you that it's sending you a signal, or are you just experiencing something that you are assuming is coming from a hand that's sending you a signal?
I'm assuming it's coming there.
The hand outside of consciousness that's sending you that signal, and I will agree with you 100%. find the hand outside of consciousness. If there's something out there that is sending a signal, there's something outside of consciousness, show it to me.
Well, it doesn't exist outside of consciousness.
Right. So it must be inside consciousness, which means it is consciousness. You see, what's happening is your mind, because
I'm just trying to figure it out.
your experience is that it's all happening right here. There isn't anything out there at all. Matter of fact, I don't even have a hand. I don't even have a body. But your beliefs won't go there. They just can't fathom it. There's got to be something there.
I see it. I think I feel it. So therefore, it must be.
It must be what? I'm seeing.
I must be.
I'm experiencing something, right? Would I be experiencing anything if I wasn't there? Would this exist without consciousness?
No.
That's the which means it has no independent existence separate from consciousness. If you look at your entire experience of life, it boils down to thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations. And emotions are just kind of a sensation that's felt inside rather than outside. All you know is this sensation. Right. Now, who told you that there was a body producing that sensation that existed independently as an object in the universe?
Well, I think I was taught that growing up.
Take a look at it. Can you verify that that's true? Can you find a body separate from the experience that we call sensation? You'd have to be able to verify it objectively. Can you? There's only one conclusion you can draw then. The body doesn't exist. There's only consciousness. We've named it sensation, but in fact, it's just consciousness experiencing itself. The knowing of the thing and the thing are one. They're not two. There's nothing out there. It's all in here. It is in consciousness, it appears to consciousness, and it's made of consciousness. There's no matter, there's no universe, there's nothing external to itself. There's only God. And you are that. That's what we experience. Now, everybody listening to me is going, what? Because
I know, well, because, yeah.
That's right.
Am I going to poof in the air if I, like poof?
Why? Because did you go poof in the air did humanity just implode when we found out that the sun was actually stationary and not moving across our sky? The appearance remains identical. It's just now we see it as it is. We interpret it correctly, right? It was an illusion. The belief in a body is a misinterpretation of experience. We're not experiencing a body or an external world. We are experiencing God as God, as the one, as being, whatever name you want. You can use as the universe, as divinity, as Buddha nature, as Christ consciousness, as the great I am, whatever word you want to use. It doesn't matter to the actual experience itself. Why would you go poof? That's the idea that somehow this all belongs to that, and if I stop believing it, it's all going to... This is a misinterpretation of reality. Reality is this. This is it. All of it, humor, fun, everything. It's all part of it. It's just not objective. It is totally within. The in and the out are the same thing. You and I are basically two faces on the same soul. To merging energy patterns within the vast emptiness of space, for lack of a better word, just pure emptiness of pure being. We never become anything less than that. Light doesn't become less light because it goes through.
I was trying to project myself over then to see out of your eyes for a second. And then I got like, no, don't do that. I think there's like I just, I'm a
You're
big experimenter. I'll try it,
you're more than welcome if
Well,
you'd like to. Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
I mean, theoretically, we should be able to just do that at will, right? I mean, if we're
Yeah, yes, but it's not really a projection because you're already here. You are the same, the consciousness.
but I'm only seeing through this right now. I mean, this part of us or whatever.
Right. And that is the experience, right? Okay, fine. There's no reason to conclude from that experience that you're this separate being sitting over there. It just means that what I'm experiencing is the way the world looks from this point of view.
I actually believe this because I've been made aware of a lot of information and experiences throughout time that how do I know that? Like, how is that even, how do I know that?
Yeah, and that's the right question to ask. The real question is, who's this I that doesn't think it has access to infinite intelligence? So you identify with the I and think, how do I know that? Which means you're identified with the finite mind that thinks that information is coming to it rather than from it. It's simply the position you've adopted.
Well, you're right, because I've adopted this thing where I say, okay, while I'm doing my healing sessions, I let go and I am spirit.
Right.
But then I take myself back and now I'm Carrie Hummingbird again.
But when are you not spirit?
I'm always spirit, but I think I maybe like just go, okay, now I want to be this.
There's a very funny and a great story of a Zen master, and he was with his students at an outside stupa. They were doing meditation outside in a stupa. During the meditation, the Zen master, he's an old guy, gets up and walks over by the stupa and starts relieving himself, taking a leak, right? And all the students are going, "Oh my God, boy, he's so old. We gotta make him over, master. You can't pee by the Buddha." And he says, "Oh, okay." He says, "Well, you show me where the Buddha isn't, and I'll pee there."
Oh, wow.
I love that story.
That is a good one.
Yes.
Okay, well, this has been fascinating as usual, and I think I know you and I are going to talk more because this is amazing, and people, people should be looking forward to more of these conversations, by the way, because we really like each other in these conversations. So.
It's very true, and between the two of us, we seem to get to some really interesting points and dig up all sorts of stuff and ideas people have, and all the things that really need to be kind of set aside to just be the pure being the pure nameless formless being that you actually are.
So this is amazing, GP. I love talking with you. That was amazing. Once again, my mind has been blown. I hope everybody here also has a blown mind, because that's the best thing, because the mind is a dangerous place to be. And I'm gonna put a link to your your talk show so people can access you. Is there anything else you want to invite people to, or know about you, or just let them unfold? How do you?
Well, for the show, it's called Satsang with G. And if you go to gpwalsh.com/swg, you can register, and I'll send you updates. And after you register, it'll take you to a page where the play actually takes place. And I'll send out reminders and that sort of thing. If you want to go through the introductory free workshop, go to gpwalsh.com/IR. Very simple. IR stands for Inner Reconciliation. And the workshop's called You're Not Broken. And it takes you the whole process so that you can see that you're not broken. It's not your fault. There's nobody to blame. And you can really begin the process of coming back into that original innocence. You'll see the original innocence is still there. And from that place of power, you are now empowered to be able to deconstruct all of the beliefs and functions and the stuff in the nervous system that was just there to protect you. And you don't need to be protected anymore. The war's over. So it can lay down the arms, and you become the vehicle by which that happens, because you just become so safe and so loving and so embracing of everything as it is, that the defenses have to come down. I mean, there's no defense to unconditional love. It's really that simple. Everything that is resisting your progress and your awakening eventually surrenders to the divinity of love and just, crawls up and goes to sleep in your lap.
That's so true. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, GP. I'm going to now give everybody kisses.
Thank you, darling.
I guess I'm giving myself kisses when I do this. So I'm giving all of me kisses. And we'll see you next time. Mwah. Love you guys. Bye.